I know it is a pretty bold statement to make, but I would say that it's safe to say realizing that I am on the autism spectrum and receiving my autism diagnosis actually saved my life. And the reason I say this is because when I was growing up, before I knew I was an autistic person, when I was going about my life as an autistic person, not knowing I was autistic, I developed a lot of internalized shame. I struggled a lot with my mental health. I felt different from those around me, and I didn't know exactly what it was or why I did feel different. And I also had many small traumatic experiences that built up over time that I can now look back and realize, oh, this did have to do with my autism. This was because I wasn't able to have accommodations for my autism to help me get through whatever this thing was. And so because I didn't have the tools and resources to process what was happening, it sort of developed into this sort of like chronic PTSD that just built up throughout my time growing up before I did have my diagnosis of autism at age 23. So when I received my autism diagnosis, it felt like I found the missing link. It felt like all these questions that I had about my life, about my place in the world, about why this was so challenging for me and why that was so hard for me and so difficult for me and why I didn't understand this or why I didn't understand that. It helped give me an understanding of so many things from my past and so many things about why I am the way that I am. And most importantly, it helped me give myself more grace for my challenges and for my difficulties. While I was growing up as an autistic person in the world, not knowing I was autistic, there were many instances where I do feel like having that diagnosis when I was younger would have been more helpful, just because it would have allowed me to have more accommodations and it would have allowed me to have a better sense of who I was. And I can just think of like so many different extremely uncomfortable scenarios that I would put myself in because I thought that's what I had to do. That's what I thought, like everyone was doing it, so why shouldn't I? And what I realize now with my autism diagnosis is that a lot of times this discomfort is actually, it's unbearable, and pushing through it is simply not an option for us. And so I'm just like thinking back at like all these times where if I had known I was autistic, I would have been able to have accommodations to get through these uncomfortable situations and not come out of it feeling completely burnt out, feeling so overstimulated and so uncomfortable and so overwhelmed. And there was a time in my life when I was a teenager, about between like age, I would say 14 to probably like 17 or 18, where I was really struggling with my mental health. And again, at this time, I didn't know I was autistic, and I was on medication, and I saw a therapist, and at this time, I also contemplated taking my own life and just not existing in the world anymore. And this is the main reason why I do say that having an autism diagnosis did save my life. While during that time and coming out of that time, I was able to definitely find ways to cope and to better my mental health. I don't feel like my mental health improved significantly until I did find out that I was on the autism spectrum. And I think that's just because I think a lot of my mental health challenges, while I did have a lot of things going on in my life at the time, I think what caused it to be so just like disabling for me and caused me to feel all these things that I wouldn't wish upon anyone was due to my autism, was due to the fact that I process things a lot differently than other people. It was due to the fact that I had struggled so much in my life, and a lot of this struggle wasn't really seen on the outside. It was mostly internalized by me because I tried to hide it and I tried to pretend that, oh, everything is okay. And I tried to definitely mask and try to come off as neurotypical. All of this like subconsciously because I didn't know I was autistic, along with just like many traumas that built up over time, like I had mentioned. And then to add on top of that, just being a teenager, trying to exist in the world and trying to find my place in the world. I feel like if I had my autism diagnosis during that time, I do think things would have been different. And this isn't to say that I wish things could have been different, because like I do hold this firm belief in my heart that our paths are unique to us. And when I did receive my autism diagnosis, I think that it came at honestly a perfect time in my life where I was coming into adulthood and I was starting to mature, and I was I guess I had the tools and resources to sort of process like what this autism diagnosis like really meant for me. And so I wouldn't wish that things had been different, but just looking back, it's kind of interesting, like, maybe if I did know that my brain was different and that there were tools and supports that I could use to help me so I didn't feel like I was drowning every single day, maybe that would have helped. Maybe it would have been different, but I don't know. I can't go back and change that, and I can only look back with the lens that I have now, kind of projecting that onto my past. And so I don't know for sure, but definitely now going forward, now that I do have this immense understanding of how my brain works and why I am the way that I am, why socializing has always been so challenging for me, why I've always felt like the odd one out when in social settings, why I always got so overwhelmed for reasons that I didn't even realize at the time, which I can look back now and be like, oh, I was overstimulated by this or that, or oh, I was having a hard time because that change in plans really dysregulated me. And so it's just really interesting to look back and just kind of think about how things would have been different, and then now from the present, now that I do have this understanding, to reorganize my life and restructure my life in a way that is supportive of my needs. And most importantly, one of the things that I've been doing since receiving my autism diagnosis, and therapy has definitely helped a lot with this, with kind of like releasing my shame and stuff, is by giving myself more grace, is by allowing myself to rest when I need it, not feeling as guilty when I say no to things, speaking up about the accommodations that I need without feeling fearful or without feeling judged or without feeling like I'm letting someone down, or even without feeling like I'm cheating or that I'm like making excuses for myself. And this is why I think it is so important that we have this understanding of ourselves. The fact is that without an autism diagnosis, an autistic person is still autistic. They're just missing that diagnosis, or in other words, they're missing that understanding of the way that they operate. And it can definitely lead to, like it did for me, mental health struggles with self-esteem, and struggles with self-love, and struggles with our place in the world, because we didn't have the supports that we actually needed in order to thrive. We were trying to get by in a neurotypical society, in a society that wasn't meant for us to thrive in. And I think with an autism diagnosis, we're able to find ways to accommodate ourselves and find ways to support ourselves that allow us to be at sort of like an even playing field, if that makes sense. And so I can't stress it enough that the autism label is a label that really helps me. I don't find that it confines me. I don't find that it defines me. But I do think that it helps give me this understanding this understanding of myself that I didn't even know was possible until I did receive this autism diagnosis. And now I can be like, wow, this makes so much sense. This makes everything from my past that I was confused about, that I was ashamed about, it makes it so much more clear. And I feel like I'm able now to almost accept my autistic identity and accept the way that I am without feeling like there's something wrong with me. It's just about knowing that this is how my brain operates. These are the things that I have challenges with. These are the things that I'm actually really good at because of my autism. These are the ways that I can accommodate myself to help make these challenges less challenging for me. This is the way that I can use my strengths and utilize them so that I am able to thrive in this world. And I've just felt so grateful since receiving my autism diagnosis, amongst many other emotions, but gratitude is definitely one of them. And so I just wanted to create this video today for anyone who maybe might be on the fence about seeking out an autism diagnosis, or for anyone who might not necessarily understand why would it even matter? Like, it wouldn't change anything about who you are. But no, it doesn't change who you are, but it helps me, or us as the autistic people, understand in so many ways about who we are and how we are and how we can support ourselves in ways that we didn't really know were possible.